And joining me right now here on the Mark Moses Show to go over the latest on the Florida Gator football team with them going now. Okay, hold on. And joining me right now here on the Mark Moses Show is my good friend John Frary up there in Jacksonville with his sports show, Sports Now. We got to talk some Gators and some Jaguars, and probably heavily on the Gators. John Frary, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Mark. Just another quiet week in Gainesville and the Florida Gators. Tongue-in-cheek, of course, I say that. A lot of noise in the system again. Unlike last year, I think the writing is clearly on the wall this time for Coach Napier. I don't see a way out. I think this is going to end. It's just a matter of when it ends. Another head-scratching performance on Saturday night, a game that Florida could have won, but DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions. The play calling, again, I think was suspect, and another penalty that cost Florida a touchdown early that I think was a huge momentum swing in that game. Florida could have been up 10-0. Maybe we're having a different conversation today, but it's a lot of the same old story with Coach Billy Napier in this tenure. It just seems like it's doomed to failure at this point.
Yeah, when that play happened, John, where you're like, oh, touchdown, what a play. Sorry, holding. That deflated everything. And I'm like, there's no way the Gators are going to win this game. What was your feeling when that play happened?
It was, here we go again. And I felt the same way, and I think most of Gator Nation felt the same way because they've seen this movie so many times and they know how it ends. And Florida has had 3 touchdowns taken away in the last 2 games by penalties. And I think if those counted, you might be talking about a 3-0 football team right now instead of 1-2. It's been that close because Florida's defense, Mark, has only given up 2 touchdowns all year, which is amazing for a 1-2 football team when you think about that. And they had 23 first downs to 10 on Saturday night against LSU. They were up by over 15 minutes in time of possession, but the turnovers and DJ Lagway, you just can't overcome that. 5 interceptions in a game, and Napier should have pulled him. I know Lagway's the highly recruited guy. I know that he's supposed to be your future, but when you see a kid struggling like that, and I personally think he's hurt, even though he's not admitting that, but something doesn't look right, and it's not just a matter of rust. It just doesn't look right from the way he performed last November. And regardless, he should not have left him out there, in my opinion, for all 4 quarters. But Coach Napier in the press conference on Monday said he thinks he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And looking at this year, there's no way. I mean, he's just delusional at this point in my mind. I mean, he's one of the most highly recruited quarterbacks in the country, but the way he's playing, he's not one of the best. He's not even close. So there's a lot of issues. I don't think it gets much better, unfortunately. They are going to Miami on Saturday night. I think that could be another brutal night for Gator fans. They lost 41-17 to Miami a year ago, and I know they don't have Cam Ward, but they do have Carson Beck, and they do have a team that looks very good. So I think this is going to be another long night for Florida coming up.
Would you pull DJ Lagway if he starts throwing interceptions again on Saturday?
Absolutely. I think you have to. I think you owe it to the rest of the team to pull him because the way the defense has played, as good as they've been, they've put you in position to win games, but you can't overcome all these turnovers. And if you don't see anything better by the second quarter on Saturday night, I would pull him, especially if there's a couple of turnovers early. I don't think Billy Napier will pull him, but I would. And we'll see how it plays out. But, again, I think there is something physically not right with DJ Lagway, and I think that's probably going to come out later in the year. But whatever's going on, he's not the same player he was a year ago. That's clear.
Of all the quarterbacks we've seen play for Florida over the last decade or so, no way I thought this would be a scenario where 5 picks, you might have to pull him. I mean, I went through Treon Harris, who won football games. Like, what? Are we in the twilight zone? What is going on, John Frary?
It seems like this Gator program is cursed right now, Mark, because I didn't think we'd be having this conversation either. We went from talking about a guy that we thought could be elite, possibly contend for the Heisman, and now we're talking about a guy that threw 5 interceptions in a game, which is something that hasn't been done at Florida since 1992, and just doesn't seem to be able to go through his progressions and be accurate enough on the long ball, because the explosive plays are not there in the Florida offense this year. And, of course, the few they've had have been called back by penalties that we talked about. So there's just a lot of issues. Lagway being first and foremost, and I think the constant undisciplined play and penalties being second. And that combination's not going to win you many games, if any. And with the schedule Florida has, which has been well documented, at Miami this week, then a bye, home against Texas, and then at Texas A&M, this team is staring 1-5 right in the face, and I think that's where it's headed. And then I think that's when Billy Napier gets fired, but we shall see.
How many touchdowns has the offense scored in the last 2 weeks?
2. They've scored 1 a game, and that's just not enough. I mean, that is just atrocious. And other than the LIU game, which I don't even count, the offense has done nothing this year, quite honestly. And here's the baffling thing, too, from last week's game. Jaden Baugh averaged over 4.5 yards a carry, yet he only got 10 touches in the running game. You've got to give him the ball more, and that was supposed to be part of Napier's bread and butter with his offense. And I don't think they've run the ball enough this year, Mark, and especially with Lagway's struggles right now. But Lagway threw 49 times last Saturday night. That's just not a recipe for success with Florida's offense. They need to run the ball a lot more this Saturday to have any chance against Miami. And I'll be interested to see if Jaden Baugh gets a few more touches on Saturday.
You brought this up a second ago, but I want to do this again. The Miami Hurricanes and their fan base, are they licking their lips, their chops, to get ready to beat the Gators on Saturday?
No doubt. That looks like the old fan base back from the 90s. When I saw the Notre Dame game a few weeks ago, that's what it reminded me of. And the fan base hates Florida from years ago because Florida dropped Miami from the schedule as an annual opponent. They used to play every year, for those that are old enough to remember that. Then Florida decided they didn't want to do that with the SEC schedule and Florida State every year, so they didn't play Miami every year. I still think a lot of Hurricane fans remember that, and anytime they get a chance to play Florida, they want to let them hear about it and put a number on them. And I expect that's what's going to happen on Saturday night. They won 41-17 last year in Gainesville, and they could have scored over 50. They missed a couple of field goals in that game and took a knee inside the 10-yard line to run the clock out, for those that forgot. I think they're going to get close to 40 this Saturday as well and probably win by double digits again.
If they get embarrassed on national TV, talking about the Florida Gators, does your gut tell you that Napier will probably be let go Sunday, the next day?
I think Scott Strickland's probably going to hang on for a few more weeks. I would let him go. I think, honestly, Mark, looking back at this whole thing, and hindsight's 2020, he should have been let go after the Texas A&M game last September. And I think it would have saved a year of this. But that aside, I think Billy Napier will be the coach when Florida plays Texas on October 4th in Gainesville. I think he's probably going to be allowed to play out the string until the Texas A&M game, and then that's when I think he gets let go. But maybe Scott Strickland has heard enough as far as the noise, and really the big money boosters is what's going to determine this more than anything, I think. Eventually, they're just going to say no more. They're not going to continue to put money into a program that's not going anywhere, and that's where this is right now with Coach Napier and the football team.
I'm just at the point where okay, if he's the coach or he's not the coach, I don't trust the university to go get another coach. I'm sorry. I don't know who would excite you at this point if you brought another coach. I'm just putting my hands up. I don't know. Maybe you have the answer, John.
I think there's a few names that would excite you. It would have to be a big name. It would have to be, I think, Lane Kiffin, who was brought up a year ago. Marcus Freeman's name's been brought up. I think Dan Lanning from Oregon is another possibility, but you may not be able to get any of them,
No.
But I think you would make them tell you no and offer the job to all three of them and see which one you could get. But I think that would excite the fan base at this point. But it can't be somebody from Louisiana again. There's no question about that. It's got to be somebody that's got a reputation and a resume, which Billy Napier didn't have.
You cannot go cheap either. I'm sorry. It's $10 million and more and a long-term contract. And don't give me this, well, we don't have a president right now. Enough. You want to be a big boy program, you're going to have to open up the checkbook. I'm sorry. They went cheap with Billy Napier. It didn't work out. You're going to have to spend money like these other programs. Is that fair if I go that route?
That is fair. I mean, with the money they put in the standalone facility for the football team, and they're redoing the stadium, you've got to bring a coach that merits what they're doing everywhere else in the program. And so that is fair. And I don't think money will be an issue, by the way. I think they'll be able to do that. It's just a matter of, can they get one of these big names to take it, which I think they'll be able to if they go that route. The biggest issue I think they're going to have, Mark, is who's going to make the hire, because you bring up an interesting point. Scott Strickland has failed on multiple football hires now. He did hire Todd Golden, a national championship basketball coach, but he struck out miserably with football. Do you make it a committee, or do you let Scott Strickland make this hire again on his own and have faith that the third time's going to be the charm? That's really the bigger question to me right now, once Coach Napier has been dismissed. And I don't know that answer. As far as the president, they've got an interim president, David Landry, right now, who was not the one that hired Billy Napier. Kent Fox was the former interim coach who did. So I think that helped Coach Napier as far as a lifeline, but I think that lifeline is gone now. Yeah. So I don't think the president's going to be an issue as far as moving on from Billy Napier.
Well, good thing they did that Netflix documentary in the offseason, showing how brilliant they were last year keeping Billy Napier. Okay? It's ridiculous. You can tell my frustration's coming out because, what are these conversations where they lose 20-10? I loved the reporter asked the question to the LSU coach Brian Kelly, why can't we run the ball? And I know you saw that. And he's yelling and yelling. He later apologized. I don't think LSU's that great of a football team. If the Gators had any type of offense, they win that game last Saturday. That's why I'm going crazy. How about you, John?
I agree. I think LSU's overrated from what I've seen because they beat a Clemson team that's lost twice now. They beat a Florida team that had 5 turnovers in the game, and they only beat them by 10 points, and they just have no offense. So if Florida, in my mind, and I know this is going to sound mean, but if they had competent coaching, they win the game on Saturday night, bottom line. I think with the right coach, Florida's 3-0. And we're talking about the college football playoff and challenging for the SEC. I honestly do, because I think Florida's got enough talent right now. But I just think the coaching has been the issue. And I don't see that changing. I mean, we're 41 games in now. Coach Napier's 20-21. That's not good enough at the University of Florida with the resources they have. So I just think the anecdotal evidence shows that it's time to move on, which I think Florida's going to. It's not a matter of if they move on. It's just a matter of when now, but they're going to move on.
Before I let you go real quick, we're here with John Frary-Sports Now. I watched your Jaguars game on Sunday, and they had no business losing that, especially after the starting quarterback for the Bengals, Joe Burrow, goes down. I'm just so frustrated. I get the ball kept getting tipped on these interceptions. Jaguars should be 2-0. I am beyond frustrated. What is your feelings here in this week?
The same. They clearly should be 2-0. They outplayed the Bengals from start to finish. But there were some key errors in the game which came up and has come up before. The Jags didn't capitalize on scoring opportunities. I think going forward on fourth down was the right call, by the way, by Coach Cohen. I know some say not. The play was there. They just didn't execute it. And Brian Thomas Jr. has become an issue as far as was he shying away from contact. And that's been an issue that's been talked about up in Duval County this week, the star wide receiver. We'll see how that works out. But I think overall, the Jags let an opportunity get away. And if you look at the AFC South right now, if Jacksonville had won, they'd be tied with the Colts at 2-0. The Texans are 0-2.
Yeah.
And the Titans are 0-2. So you could have possibly turned this into a two-team race early. I know we're very early in the season, but Jacksonville's got a chance this week to put Houston at 0-3 if they win. That's hard to come back from, even with a 17-game schedule. Most teams that start out 0-3 don't make the playoffs. So having said all that, I think Jacksonville let one get away, and they haven't been able to beat one Jake Browning. I don't know if some remember, but there was a Monday night football game 2 years ago when Jacksonville was 8-3, and at that point was talking about the number one overall seed in the AFC. They could not beat a Jake Browning-led Cincinnati team. They lost in overtime. So it's been frustrating that they haven't been able to capitalize when they play the Bengals and they don't have to face Joe Burrow. And they definitely should have won last Sunday. There's no doubt about it.
Travis Hunter, I feel like you have to figure out what you want to do with him. You're throwing him out there on defense. He's on there kind of on offense. I want him to be a dominant player at one position. I think you're asking too much of this guy, and then he's just average. I'd rather him just be a shutdown corner and then maybe one or two plays on. How are you looking at it through two games?
I think they're still feeling their way with him, and I think you're right, because right now he's kind of all over the place, and he hasn't really been an impact in these two games the way you thought. So I think maybe make a decision on the staff. Where do you want to focus him primarily? Do you want him focused at wide receiver? Well, then let him play the majority of the game there, or do you want him to become a shutdown corner opposite Tyson Campbell? Let him play the majority of the game there. And by the way, I didn't think it was pass interference on the fourth down that he was called on, but maybe I'm seeing that from Jaguar eyes. It was close, but I've seen a lot more not be called than what they called on him. But I understand it was up in Cincinnati. It was along the Bengals sideline. But that aside, there were so many chances the Jaguars let get away on Sunday that would have won that game. But I do think the Jag coaching staff needs to make a decision moving forward. And Travis Hunter, getting back to your point, Mark, on what exactly do you want to do? Because I don't think they've really been sure what to do with him yet. So that's something that staff needs to get together on for his sake, as well as the team moving forward. What is his primary role?
Right now, you look at the Jaguars, even though they're 1-1, they look like a better football team, which you and me said before the season started. They look like, hey, they could compete for the playoffs. That's why I'm like, don't be messing around. Figure this out. His name is John Frary, Sports Now. Always appreciate talking to you here on Tuesdays. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. All right, man?
Mark, always an honor and a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.